Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, we have a very special guest join us, Stan Williams. Stan is one of the hosts of the popular YouTube channel Salon. So let's beam Stan in. Hey, Stan.
Hello, and thank you for lying to your audience on my behalf, calling us popular. But we are a small but mighty podcast where we're growing every day with our 180 subscribers. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And y'all are. I really enjoy it. Now, I may not agree with all the outcomes that y'all decide some days, but hey, we're not supposed to agree on everything, you know,
That's all
especially
right.
right now on the.
That's all right. It's my burden to have correct opinions, and not everybody agrees with them. It's all right.
That's that's right. Especially right now, because Enterprise is one of my favorite series.
You're the one. I am enjoying it. I truly enjoying it. This rewatch in Trump's America 2025. It's a different vibe than watching it during the War on Terror, which it mirrors very directly, especially season three. Um, but I do there's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of great performances, even if the material is rough at times.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that's what I have liked about us. Even though I may not agree with all the comments but I see where y'all are coming from though, because again, like you, I watched it when it first came out. And sure, I probably have some, blinders on some of it because it's when your show that you like, you're kind of like, giving the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I've actually seen where the group has come with some of their decisions on it. Um, so it kind of hurts a little, but I'm growing,
I still
you know.
enjoy it. I love all Star Trek, including the Trek that I
True.
don't particularly care for. I still love that it exists because I know that it may not be my favorite Trek, but it's someone else's favorite Trek. And the more Trek we can get, the better. It's great for the franchise overall.
Agreed. And if we don't watch what they produce, we're not going to get any more. And that even goes for that thing that they called a movie, you know.
I was wondering if you'd bring it up, the specter of Section 31, the Stundertones of it. I what it boils down to for me is I agree with a lot of the criticism of the movie. I don't agree with any of the hate of the movie. It, it's just wild to me to um, you know get be how do I say this diplomatically, even though some of these YouTubers were not being diplomatic with their nonsense. Saying something that was produced by Star Trek isn't Star Trek. A little childish. Saying this is the death of the franchise is just ridiculous and hyperbolic. There are plenty of criticisms of the movie. We shared them on the Salon, certainly. But it was exactly what they said it was going to be. It was a fun distraction, and I'm glad it did well on the platform because, like, I would like to see more with them if it was a choice of anything else or that. I would go with anything else, certainly. But it was fun.
Oh, I agree. And I don't remember. I think every single channel on the planet did a review of. Even I did one. It was my one. It was my first live, and we did it. And I personally did not have a problem with the movie, because in their defense, it was a series that they squashed into 93 minutes, and a lot of people just don't understand how much probably oh no, how much was cut just to get that.
Yeah, one thing I said on the Salon is I watching the movie, I can see the outline of a season. And I can see where some character development got lost. Like I could see backstory for all of those characters being the B story of an episode in a season, and you have to lose that when you truncate it, and paying for a completely fresh script when You don't know when you're going to get Michelle Yeoh back after winning that Oscar, especially. You know, it they they had a window of time to do it, and they got it done. And I hope for more streaming movies. Certainly, I do think there's more stories to tell in that vein. I actually really liked that they moved away from the cartoon villainy of a Section 31, like in Discovery season 2, although I did enjoy the season overall, and more into a Mission Impossible type organization. I liked that vibe, so I could see more with them. But I also really like the idea of just more streaming movies, maybe a Lower Decks, maybe a backdoor pilot for a different kind of show, maybe, um, the political workings of the Federation would be a really interesting streaming movie. The possibilities are endless, but like you said, we gotta watch the Trek that we get in the meantime and not discourage people from watching it so that we get to make more.
Agreed. And that's funny that you say that because that was I during one of my reviews, I specifically called it Mission Impossible meets Star Trek. That was all I could see when they got their. Oh, that's how I saw it. And so, oh my, yeah. So I overall it was good. It was a good movie. Period. And just watch. We just need to watch it. So, and I was going to say though. So as I've been watching Salon now for a couple of months since I found y'all, and I mean, obviously I found it when we were doing, reviews on tex-trek those couple of times and learned about your channel and everything. And I can definitely tell you enjoy entertaining people. And has that been a has been entertaining a lifelong passion of yours or?
Yeah. I appreciate that question. I have not had that question asked. I do. I like to have a good time, and I want people around me, and be it an audience or on the panel or at a game night that I host, I want people to have a good time when they're with me. So, I try to make that happen. On the Salon, it comes with goofy videos and trying to steer the conversation in certain ways as the host. And then in my real life, having game nights where you have some good snacks for any kind of eater. And I think I overthink every. In fact, I have a banner back here somewhere from a friend that says "Great minds overthink alike." It's because I overthink all of the details all the time. I want people to have a good time when they're around me, for sure.
I and we do. I mean, I'm always laughing, especially on the Salon, because when and all of the graphics y'all have when you that pop up, like the first time I was like, "What is all this silliness?" But it just makes for a good hour and a half, sometimes two, yeah, not usually 2 hours, but still,
Yeah, last week went a
of
little
just
long, but ordinarily we found our sweet spot is between 1 and 1.5 hour for sure.
yeah, for a panel, I agree. I think that's probably a good spot. And I try to do like the one-on-ones about an hour, give or take, and then maybe down 45. But yeah, no, and yeah, see, I knew you had to be an entertainer. I could see you when you were a kid, probably entertaining everybody in the family and whatnot.
They might disagree with that, but attempts were made for sure. Yeah, I was a theater kid in high school for sure. And I do remember very early on, like my dad had again, I want to say this diplomatically. My dad is funny, but because he's funny, I wanted to be funny. But it took a while for me to learn that his sense of humor is a little mean spirited. I learned that through my teen years. I'm like, oh, he's making fun of people. That's what's happening here. Not to get too deep on the pod early on, but I do remember as a kid when I could make people laugh, it was intoxicating. I was like, oh, they're having a good time. I caused that, and I just really enjoy that feeling. And so it's uh, I've leaned away from being mean spirited, hopefully, but I definitely do still want to uh, bring a lighthearted, humorous vibe to the world around me as best I.
And I think you do. I think you do, from what I can tell. And so, and so, what I don't honestly, I don't know. Other than Salon, what is your what were you doing? What was the your day job?
Day to day life in my career has been in advocacy and campaigns, electoral speaking. I've worked for the Democratic Party off and on, and presidential campaigns, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That has to be a little, and it has to have some be interesting actually to see behind the scenes of some of the, especially on the political stuff when you're working big campaigns and stuff like that, and what's going on.
Interesting is a great word for it. I've had small roles in several campaigns, several big campaigns. I was a field organizer, I was a regional organizing lead, uh, and then my career progressed, and I was the coordinated campaign director for all of the Arizona Democratic Party. That sounds cooler than it actually is. It just means I had to deal with a lot of crazy people with a lot of conflicting needs, and again, needing to be diplomatic in the way that I discuss. A lot of strong personalities on most of my campaigns. These are 14 to 18-hour days, especially the last 3 months of an election. But I've loved my career. The heart of it is meeting people where they're at, trying to bring people together for a common cause. In most cases, for me, it's been Barack Obama's presidential campaign, or generally voting for, at the Human Rights Campaign, we would endorse pro-equality candidates, that kind of thing. So trying to move the needle in a progressive way as best we can. And um, right now is a little rough, but we'll come back swinging, I'm sure. And I don't know what my next gig is going to be yet. It might be in the advocacy space, it might not be, but either way, I will keep pushing any way that I can, and certainly vote as progressively as I can.
Well, but luckily you have a salon right now to keep you occupied.
Yes, I joked on our last bonus content, this is all that I have. And then I was like, wait, that sounds much darker than I intended it to. But um, the salon is the thing that I have consistently right now that I'm working on, and I love it. It's Thursday nights are my favorite night of the week, not just because I get to talk about Star Trek, but I get to do it with my friends, that we all met on Trek Twitter of all places, and we're able to come together and have this fun space for a couple of hours each week is really joyful.
And that's my next, actually, that leads me to my next question is, what sparked your interest to get into the Star Trek podcasting world with us and make the salon?
Great question. It sort of happened by accident, and incrementally. Trevor and I met via Twitter Spaces. We were hopping on to a Twitter space every week talking about the latest episode. And then we got to talking in the DMs about having our own space so that we could keep the conversation going. Because usually the other one would just go for about an hour, and we're like, well, I have nothing else to do, so let's do our own. And so that just sort of snowballed. Eventually, we're like, oh, let's add a visual component and do it on YouTube. And then we thought, oh, we should maybe not delete them every week, because for a while, um, probably the first 6 months or so, we were doing, or maybe even longer. Um, when did I go to STLV the first time? 2023. Yeah, so maybe for the first year, really, we were deleting our. We were self-destructing after every salon, and then eventually we're like, oh, if we're going to build an audience. I mean, to say it that way sounds like we did this purposefully, like we were trying to like build a podcast empire. We really weren't, but it was we met Greg Grunberg at STLV in 2023. He and Ken, who is on the Salon, are good friends and work together at an organization called Talk About It, which talks about epilepsy and some other conditions, um, uh, uh, helping bring awareness to various aspects of those conditions. And we got to talking about it, and it was Greg who was like, "Oh, why do you delete it?" I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
because we're unhinged, Greg." That was
Oh,
basically the answer. We had a safe space to have our most unhinged Star Trek opinions, but it just turned into, let's just do it. Let's keep them up. Let's see where this can go, and then as I do, I start overthinking everything. And then I started thinking about the numbers and like, let's get more subscribers. Let's see where this can go. And so it's not like, how do I build the audience? I need likes to sustain myself. Although it sometimes feels that way, but more of a like, I get a dopamine hit as somebody with ADHD every time I get a subscriber. So I'm just always chasing that high, I guess.
I understand. I get it. My one of the guys who helps me out, I told him one time I was hitting my YouTube studio and just like looking and looking, and he's like, "Stop the studio scrolling." I'm like, "Fine," because when you see that number go up and then it just flatlines for a while, and you're like,
Yeah, it's easy to get obsessive about it, and so I try not to. Like right now, with nothing else to focus on, I'm like, sure, I'll work on our social content so that I can try and nudge the numbers. But at the end of the day, we could have one subscriber, and we would still do the salon every week.
"Yep, agreed." And that's yeah, I admit I have done the doom scroll on subscribers and looking at it, and I'm like, I just gotta stop because if you don't, you'll go crazy real easy. Oh my goodness. So now since you've been doing the salon, I know most of the time it's just the panel talking, but have you had a guest yet? That you would consider like what's been your best interview so far?
Well, we've only had three so far, so I don't want to throw two of them under the bus, but it was definitely. Um, no, they were great. So we've only had three interviews so far, but we're looking for more. Um, you know, getting getting the feelers out is always challenging because you know for some folks in the Trek sphere, um, some of them are more active right now than others, so it's easier to get a hold of them. We interviewed Aaron Watke from Star Trek Prodigy, the co-executive producer. I just messaged him on social media, and he's a wonderful human being who interacts with fans, which God love him, because like I can only imagine the crazy nonsense that he gets, given the crazy nonsense that I sent. So I reached out, and we were able to have a conversation with him because, as it turned out, we go live about his daughter's bedtime, and so he was able to hop on live, and that was a really fun conversation, and we got to weave all of the panelists into it. And then the other two interviews that we've done so far, we had Lori Ulster from Trek Movie, who is just another wonderful human being. I love her podcast with Anthony on Trek Movie. And we also recently had Brian Volkweiss, who's super fun, super funny. He's the CEO of the Nacelle Company. They just launched a new toy action figure line in Trek. And so with both of them, we did pre-recorded video interviews with just Trevor and I for Lori, and then just Will and I for Brian. Trevor was going to be on that, but had some technical issues. And in that instance, Trevor and I are the co-hosts, and I know Will has a special love for Star Trek toys. He has models and has built models ever since he was a kid. So I wanted to include him in that. If we ever uh, as you've seen on the Salon, the more voices there are, the more chaotic it can be, and the more like the interview with Aaron was wonderful, but it took more prep ahead of time, and who's going to ask what question at what time, and practicing a run through with fewer voices. I still have a run through document, but we can be a little more loosey goosey with it, and so we'll pull voices based on whoever the guests is. Like uh, random, like Matt is our time travel lover. So if we ever had somebody who played, like if we had the guy who played Daniels, for example, I would make special effort to make sure Matt could be a part of that conversation because it ties into his love of that aspect of Trek for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and you're right. The prep that can go in that is involved with doing a one-on-one interview can take hours, especially if you've got to do research on their history, what they've done, where they're from, you name it. Oh, have they written a book or done XYZ? And that was something I picked up from watching some of the other podcasts and listen to the host. They're like, yeah, that it takes them. There can be a lot of prep work, and then some of their guests sometimes say, well, if you want me to be on this show, then you must do boom, 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 and then we'll let you on. Then we'll come on.
I also try to watch, like I watched interview or watched or listened to interviews with each of our guests, just to get a vibe, do a vibe check. Like my sense of humor can be off putting for some folks. So like, do I need to dial it back with this guest? I have not needed to with our guest thus far, but also I don't want to ask the same question that they get in every interview. It's like at STLV, I understand a fan who doesn't go to STLV every year. I've only been twice so far, but there seems to always be somebody asking a question that a Kate Mulgrew or a Marina Sirtis or whoever has been answering for decades now. It's like, come on, like let's ask something new. Let's get something fresh.
And it's hard because I interviewed John Billingsley a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of my goals, was to try and come up with something that he has not been asked. And when you've got someone like him who's had a career that long, and especially in the Star Trek world, and has been on umpteen number of podcasts, there's not much that he has not been asked. Now, I did get lucky, and he shared something on our interview that he said he could not recall sharing any others. Was in There's a scene when he was in hibernating, and I can't remember the episode. I'm not going to even think about it right this minute, but when Cutler and T'Pol come to wake him up, and he lifts up the covers, he did that as a joke that they were saying that Travis was underneath there.
Yes, I remember that. I think that was 2 days and 2 nights because it was, wasn't it? Or no, 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 not 2 days. There was some kind, or no, maybe it was because it was some kind of shore leave, and Travis got sick because they gave him some sort of inoculation that he ended up being allergic to. I think it was 2 days and 2 nights because he's like, while they're on the surface, now's the time for me to hibernate. That was that was so funny. John Billingsley. I remember this is the opposite of what I was saying earlier. I think when I watched it as when I was younger, he reminded me. I thought there was too much of a, oh, this is the Neelix of this show, who I then and now find annoying. That is an in-universe criticism. Ethan Phillips is a wonderful actor and hilarious. I love some of his other stuff for sure, and he has some great stuff in Voyager for sure, for sure. But I think with Phlox, I thought it was a little too close when I was younger, and I thought like, oh, this is just the Neelix of Enterprise. Now on our rewatch, I'm like, John is act in circles around some of his co-stars, and when they don't give him a whole lot to do. Him and Jolene are incredible. And Linda, when she actually has something to do, wonderful. And all of them are, I think all of them are more capable than the material that they got. But Billingsley definitely stands out. And that episode in particular, he is hysterical. Is so good.
Oh yeah, he was. And then it was he when we were talking and he was, how he always would try and give suggestions to the writers and be like, well, let me do this or let me do that. And like he said, Picardo would say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And like, sure, Bob. And, if he wanted to do something, they're like, no. And that was in Doctor's Orders. And he made a comment and he was in the interview. It was so funny. He goes, I wanted to walk in and turn and something on the other side of the room got knocked off and insinuate. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
not going to do
His
that.
toenails aren't the only large appendage.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, he was, oh my God, he was unhinged, but it was funny unhinged. So, and there was one point when I asked him, so what would it like to work with Scott Bakula? And I'm pretty sure my face, I was just frozen at first because he goes, he's a bleep, bleep. I'm like, what? And then he goes, oh no, he's the nicest effing guy on the planet. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, did I just step into a hornet's nest here or something?
It would be hilarious. I think about the Salon, and hopefully this comparison won't sound insulting, but I do wonder when I do interviews, how hilarious it would be if, like, on the Salon with our less than 200 subscribers, if we got some kind of scoop like that. Like, what a ridiculous place for John Billingsley to come out as a Scott Bakula hater, right? Just like a random podcast interview some days, like, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I actually think.
And that was kind of how he started it. And for a second, and I'm just like, holy. And then he, got serious. But he was, I thought he was as serious could be. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it freaked me the F out. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, he was so much fun. He's very passionate about everything. So yeah, if y'all ever get him on, I think he would be great to have on the Salon because y'all's back and forth would be phenomenal.
Yeah, we will definitely.
Oh my God.
And now's a good plug. They just did Trek Talks 4, which was a wonderful event. The Hollywood Food Coalition.
It's a great event. And so I gave a little here and there where I could on that. And I streamed it for almost all day. I think I had it on my TV, as I was walking around doing other things, editing a video, all that stuff. Just, I need to go rewatch a couple of the panels. Like, I really wanted to go see the Voyager one. I did not. I think I was doing something that got away. So luckily it's on YouTube and I can go rewatch it.
Yeah, they were all really fun. I had it on in the background, and I weaved in and out a little bit just because I get a little antsy with my ADHD just sitting in front of a screen. But they were all wonderful panels, really interesting, really fun, and they raised. I think they hit their goal of at least $50,000 for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Yeah, and Rod Roddenberry himself is matching at least 30,000 of that. So really, they've raised over 75,000.
Yeah, the last number I saw right at the end, it was 77,000, blah, something, so almost 80 grand, and they may have gotten it by now with, after show contributions. I haven't looked. Well, so now you've mentioned something. So you said you've been to STLV, twice now? Did you go last year? Or
the last 2 years? 2023 was my first STLV. It was actually the first time I met Trevor and Matt and Ken in person. So that was lovely. And then we also went last year. I think the same crew went last year. Yeah. And hopefully this year it's going to be I don't think Ken's going to be able to make it this year. Um, my participation is tentative, a strong tentative, given my current work situation. But I think Will's going to be able to join us this year, and Joanne is coming as well. So we'll have a strong contingent for sure.
Oh, so other than STLV, have you gone to any of the other like the San Francisco conventions
Not
or any of
yet.
that type of stuff?
I moved away from San Francisco shortly before they started doing that one, and so I think it's something we might do in the future. You know, as the salon grows, I think, you know, I have this pie in the sky idea that will monetize eventually. You know, we do of course have a Patreon, and thank you for being a Patreon supporter. But you know, other than defraying the costs of the salon, um, we're not bringing in top tier salaries or anything like that. But eventually, as we grow, if we monetize, I think something that we would want to do beyond, you know, defraying actual costs of the salon would be, the first thing I want to do is help cover people's our panelists Paramount Plus subscription, so that they always have access to the Trek that we're talking about, and then you know, help with travel expenses for those kinds of things where we can. But that's unlikely, and if does happen years from now, probably. It's the current dream of the salon. My current dream is to be able to pay for our panelists to get to various conventions, to, you know, not only be there and have fun, but also cover it for the salon, maybe move in that direction a little bit, but more just have fun with each other.
And that's where I want to go. And it's just going to be a while,
Mm-hmm.
a long while, because it takes this a long time to do that.
Yeah.
But
We're now
and I've done.
almost 3 years in, um, about two, maybe a little less than two of like actually trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you're gonna get. You'll. We'll all get there. We'll all get there. He's got to keep working, 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 and working. And as I asked I was talking. I was in a Zoom because I'm on a Delta Flyer, and we were talking one time with Garrett, and I made a comment about start my own podcast and so on and so on. And I said, I heard you made a comment about that it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I um it's basically a part-time job for me. It's, I think a conservative estimate is probably 10 hours a week minimum. To, well, it depends on the week, it depends on you know, things that are happening, but they're the inner workings of a podcast in the salon. So I do like the social content because I want to make sure that stuff is going out to our channels throughout the week to help build audience, remind audience that we exist. There's creating the visuals for, you know, the thumbnail that goes out with YouTube. Then there's the visuals that we'll use in the episode, video clips, that kind of thing. It all takes it takes a good amount of time, and so I've just structured my Fridays and Mondays around that for now. But it's something I chose to do because I also, on top of just loving Star Trek and wanting this to do well, and wanting to put out a good product, so to speak. I don't like thinking of us as a product, but like I do want what we put out to be of quality, even though I'm just a guy with a laptop, you know, doing my best with Canva and Streamlabs, you know. But it's been a lot of fun. It is a lot of work. It is a part-time job, but I enjoy it, and it's also, you know, we recently switched different streaming systems to save a little bit of money, and our new system is more complicated, but I'm really enjoying it because it's like, oh, I'm learning how to do editing and checking sound quality and, optimizing hashtags and like that I never thought I would ever care about. But it's become something that's interesting that I can put to work for my love of Star Trek. So it's been fun.
And this is fun. I mean, yes, it's work and, editing and trying to figure out all the stuff you got to add in and cutting stuff out and what stays and what goes.
Why
Because, like you said,
when I know
yeah,
I did this right, why isn't it uploading? And then, oh, I didn't click the
yes.
thing. Or
Well, exactly. Or I, we've started episode reviews and I was finishing up the first one Saturday, editing it, and I get till the very end, and I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't record an outro. I didn't say anything. I said, "Okay, we're done." To the lady, the woman who was with me doing the stuff, I said, "Okay, well, we're good. So we'll now start the next one." I thought I was done with the edit, and now I've got to cut that, make an actual exit for the whole thing, and it's gonna be a hard cut, but whatever. But I'm just like, oh my god, why did I do that? Because I was moving on to the next episode, and yeah. So it's those little, and they're little things you think, okay, I'll do that or I'll do this, and then you're like, oh crap, I forgot I got to do
yeah,
that.
whoops.
Yeah, exactly. And then I need to re-record the intro because I was like, for whatever reason, I was like stiff as a board when I was doing it. So I have, but so we're getting to some of the nitty gritty of your Star Trek history and what you like and don't like and all that stuff. And honestly, what first drew you to Star Trek?
Ooh, that is a good question. Some of my earliest memories are watching Treks. I don't know what I don't know I don't know the genesis of it. I know I watched a lot of the original cast movies in Next Generation, and I really enjoyed. I think I liked the sci-fi aspect of it generally, but also, I was a ship nerd. Like, oh, this is really cool. The phasers and all of that nonsense. The action got me, and then when Deep Space Nine premiered, I remember my brother and sister were not big fans of Trek like I was, but there was an opportunity for us to stay up late and watch TV. So we watched the first hour, super good, and then my dad was like, "Well, it's your bedtime." I was like, "Oh, come on!" Please, we had to beg him to let us watch the second half, and he relented. But I was hooked from as early as I can remember. Um, yeah, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I didn't watch uh, all of as it aired. I think the first couple of years we didn't have UPN, but then towards the end of its run, I was able to watch it, and then Enterprise when it was actually on in real time.
Exactly. Yeah, I was TNG and then Enterprise Voyager when I got access to UPN finally because I didn't have access to Deep Space Nine, so I didn't get to watch DS9 until it was on Netflix. Really, yeah, just the way it worked out. But
I had Deep Space Nine VHS tapes, and I would record the episodes as they were airing on our local channel in Utah. It was Yeah, it was, and then I think I got the Columbia House when that used to be a thing. It was like the first three are free, and then only 19.99 a month. And then, like, I'm a child, so I got the three free ones, and then I canceled it over the phone because you had to call and actually talk to a human back then. Nightmare, but
I remember I didn't do it for the movies, but I did like the CDs and stuff like that. And you get the 10 free, and then you got to cancel. Oh my
10 for a
god.
penny.
Yes. Yeah, I so remember that. I probably still owe them for something, and they just, who
They
knows
will never
what
see
by
that
now.
money.
They will never see it. It's right. So, what was your? So it sounds like DS9 might have been your favorite series, possibly. or one of
Yeah,
them.
it's the one that I go back to most. Kira is my favorite character in all the franchise, and I think my thing with Deep Space Nine is it's truly an ensemble, but you still have an incredible number one in Avery Brooks with Captain Sisko. His dynamic with Kira was just incredible, and seeing her arc throughout the development for both of those characters just incredible. And they're also like they're the recurring characters. Like I love Garrick, the that he embraced the queerness of that character, and that he found, oh, I want to have sex with Julian. That's this character's vibe, and like was able to play that in a way that ran on TV in the 90s is just incredible. Jadzia is such a wonderful character. Her arc with what happened to Terry is nonsense, but overall, like Deep Space Nine just had like even beyond the war stories and the longer arc and cool ship battles that I of course loved. The deep allegory. My favorite episode is The Darkness and the Light. It was written by Brian Fuller, and Nana just acts her full out in that episode. I personally believe Nana Visitor is one of the best actors, period, but definitely in the franchise. And what she was doing with Kira was revolutionary for the time for being a woman in the industry. She talks about it a lot in her book Open a Channel, which is wonderful, and I highly suggest people read. But she,
I've got it. I'm reading it.
yeah, it's incredible. She does an excellent job of telling a story, but also shepherding stories from all of these women in the franchise that she's interviewed. Highly recommend. But she was just awesome. In that episode, she has a monologue where she's just laying on a bio bed after being injured, and to just be laying there with not being able to move around, like just it's just her face, it's just her and her body telling the story of how of her first mission in the Shakar resistance cell after two of her resistance cell mates were murdered. Like the pain, it's just incredible. And then my other favorite episode is this campy. It's called The Assignment, where Keiko is taken over by a Pa Wraith. It is campy as hell, and at the end she gets electrocuted, and she's just like, ah! It is so funny, it's so good. It works. Rosalind Chow is incredible. Like the multifaceted nature of all of their characters. I think that's what gets me back to Deep Space Nine more than any other, because I love all of Trek, but name a series, there are always one or two characters that have the majority of the focus, and Deep Space Nine, they had breathing room for everybody.
Well, I say they spread it out. Every character at some point had their own little arc or of some form or fashion. In my opinion, you know, like we just got finished watching their Delta Flyers just did the review of the first part, and I should remember the series episode, but it's when Garrick is the Obsidian Order and the Tal Shiar are about to start preparing to go attack the founders.
Yeah, with Inabrin
Oh,
Tain.
yes. And I hadn't watched that one in a while. And after listening to Robbie and Garrett and Terry give their analysis of it, I was like, man, that actually, I mean, it was a good episode. And they had a lot. I'm sorry, they really did have a lot of good episodes on that show. Some honestly, like you were saying, I mean, I think for me personally, some of the best in the series. I mean, the ones that were, it was In the Pale Moonlight and Far Beyond the Stars with Avery were just, oh, Hit man can act. That man can act.
Duet. Like, there's so many, there are so many incredible episodes in Deep Space Nine that it's constantly rewatchable for me.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you on that. And so I was going to ask, I'm going to give you one or two more Trekkie questions. You know, honestly, what would you say to someone who says that Star Trek is, not relevant anymore?
Delete your account.
Or for being outdated? Yeah.
Speak to no one else. No. Uh, the political answer is to try and find common ground. Like, what makes you say that? To ask probing questions. But if I get to the point of trying to convince, maybe a slightly controversial answer, but um, I sometimes wonder if there's truth to that statement with some of the decisions, some of the stories that have been told in recent years, um, in two particular but popular outings of the franchise. But I will say the most relevant Trek recently to me has been Star Trek Discovery. I think their way of breaking through the Trek formula and telling stories in a different way, more emotional stories. Um, Once you get past the like, oh, these are galactic stakes again, Michael again. Like, I get it, but that's that's the whole point of their story. Is it's a story about things happening to this person and the people around her. So get over it. And the exploration of what it means to be human in Star Trek Discovery, and to have trauma that you need to deal with and be able to find joy and not close yourself off. I think that's certainly relevant. Some of the I again, I love all Trek. I think I'm excited for what Strange New Worlds is going to do, but I season 3, but I think in seasons 1 and 2 there are a lot of fun episodes, but I think there's a lot of surface level allegory happening there. Like, I think about season 1 episode, I forget the name of it, but the gist of it was child labor is bad. I'm like, okay, well, in this society that you've just shown us, I'm going to sound like a monster for a second. One child is consenting to torture himself so that this great machine can work.
Oh, I remember that
The
episode.
way that they set up this episode, one child is sacrificed. He chooses to sit in that chair. He realizes what's going to happen and does it anyway. And I don't know what they were trying to get us to glean from that. Like, child labor is bad, sure, but like, the execution was just wonky with with what I don't know they were trying to tell us. And I think they've shied away from the opportunity of highlighting queerness in the future. I think they have ignored some of their own characters, to the detriment of the show, in my opinion, so that they can play with original series characters. Because it seems to me, again, I love Strange New Worlds, I love all Star Trek, but I don't think sometimes I wonder, do you want to do Strange New Worlds, or do you want to do a backdoor reboot? Because like, it feels like they just want to play with Kirk and Spock. That's why, like, why is Kirk there so much? Paul Wesley's great. I'm enjoying his rendition, but the one exception I will give them is La'an. They've done a wonderful arc with La'an. They're one of their few original characters that has had room to grow, and they have, with Una and Rebecca Remain, they have the most seasoned actor on that show is barely utilized. And we keep being told that Una is this incredible first officer, and they don't show it. So I'm hopeful in season 3 that they'll do more showing and less telling. They'll do more deeper allegory. They won't shy away from the queerness. They won't shy away from actually confronting fascism, because it's been, the last season, the Klingon warmonger was just this jolly good fellow, and they decided to leave it open ended to why Mbenga killed him. And like, your doctor murdering a Klingon ambassador on the flagship is a powerful moment that they put it behind glass and they shy away from it. It all just feels so surface level to me, and it's enjoyable, but the stuff that they're doing with Uhura is wonderful. What they're doing with La'an is wonderful. I like having a bad captain. Like Christopher Pike, Anson Mount's a wonderful actor. This is in universe criticism of Pike as a captain. I like that he's wishy washy and like not great. He's indecisive and makes mistakes, and that's not something that we see much, other than Archer just being. So I I don't remember the question, and I went into a very critical mode. So hopefully, I haven't turned off the entire audience. I love it. I'm excited for more of it. Um, I just hope more deeper storytelling from them, because I know that they're capable of it.
And I'm right here thinking about everything you just said, and
How correct
I
it is.
see what
Yep.
you're
Mhm.
I see what you're talking about, because it makes me. They really, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Strange New Worlds. I was just like you, but it is, now that you say that, it seems more like just a backdoor way of redoing TOS.
And I'm on record as saying
Huh?
I do not want that. We like Ethan Peck is wonderful. We already know so much about Spock. Seeing how we got there is interesting. So I'm liking what they're doing there, but more of Kirk and Spock. It was a cute. It was really cool to see when they met. Seeing that moment, absolutely. Little touches here and there are fine, but like Kirk has shown up now in at least 3 episodes and 2 10-episode seasons. Why is he there?
Well, him and La'an had a whole episode together.
And I enjoyed that episode.
I did too.
I especially the Pelia adding Carol Kane.
Oh
What
my
a
gosh,
delight!
she's
What a
hilarious.
delight! And that they are the ones that nudged her into engineering. Like I see, I love that kind of thing. You get if you get in there and explore your characters in a more organic setting. Just love, like, what does this look like, an engineer's engineering place? Like it she is so delightful. That was wonderful. I don't mean to sound, but I when they do it right, it's wonderful. And then when they waste an episode saying maybe murder is bad, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like the
I am looking forward to this season, especially just what I mean. I know we got those little clips, but the fact that I cannot wait to see the whole the telephone episode.
all her antique telephones.
Yes. Oh gosh. Okay, we could talk for hours on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask my standard last question for everybody: is what Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
Oh, I want to say transporter, but the way it is understood in the franchise, it murders you. It murders you and it copies you. And I don't know what happens to your soul. So I'm not going to say the transporter. That needs to be retconned at some point, by the way. Star Trek powers it be. But it's the replicator, right? Like taking and making apples. It's pretty good for, right? So um yeah, the replicator, being able to not just I want a 3D printer so bad. I do not have the money for it, but when I do, I keep seeing all of these cool little trinkets that people are making in like storage solutions for their bits and bobs or whatever. But also, I saw somebody do half ships that they put on sort of a glossy thing. So behind them, they have it looks like in the observation lounge of the ships that have the ship models. It looks like, and one that I saw, it looks so it it was 3D, of course, so it protruded out, but the material that this creator put it on made the ship reflect, so it looks like you can see the whole thing from certain angles. So rad. So I want a replicator to have. I want better furniture and exotic meals and the right tool that I need that I can then just put back in the replicator so that I don't have clutter everywhere. I want a replicator.
Oh, that's a good one on the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you need that 10 millimeter socket that never is there.
Yes. I think about this a lot with like community aid and mutual aid and like our capitalist society teaches us, oh, well, you should have everything on your own. Like, don't meet your neighbors. Like, I don't need a table saw, but if I could replicate one and then put it back in there when I was done, wonderful. Like, because I have had some projects like, man, if I had a table saw, I'd have this cool frame around some of my art right now. But like buying one, yeah. So I need to meet my neighbors who have table saws or have a replicator.
Mm-hmm. And just think, like you said, all the foods that you can make for yourself and everybody else.
Yes, from anything.
That's right. Well, Stan, thank you for coming on tonight, and this was fun. This was a fun talk, and we just get to talk about Trek and all the above, and I enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And final plug for at Salon. Trek,
oh yes,
in all of the places at Salon Trek. Anywhere you care to listen to a podcast or watch it on YouTube, and all of the socials. So thank you very much, Chris.
Yes. You're welcome. And I have to say, I will plug as well. Watch the Salon, join their Patreon. It's well worth the money. You have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.